So let me now introduce the first speaker, John Swinney, that is the Cabinet Secretary for Finance, Employment and Sustainable Growth. Please.
Thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the Edinburgh International Conference Centre, to the City of Edinburgh and to Scotland. This is a great privilege for the Scottish Government to be closely involved in the operation and the presentation of the European Inspire Conference, and it's a great privilege for the City of Edinburgh, our capital city, to be the first United Kingdom host to the annual European Inspire Conference. I suspect it's perhaps an acknowledgement of the deep connections that have existed historically and today between Scotland and many European countries that you decided to come here, but you are extremely welcome. And I extend a warm welcome to those who are visiting us from right across the globe, across Europe and in other countries and jurisdictions, and I hope that you enjoy the opportunity to experience life in the City of Edinburgh in all its great majesty and steeped in the historical development of our capital city. You're gathered here today in a common purpose to share knowledge and experience, to debate and to discuss and to learn from one another. And the great Scottish philosopher David Hume, a son of this great city, said that truth springs from argument amongst friends. Truth springs from argument amongst friends. And it's that very principle that lies at the heart of your deliberations and lies at the heart of the Scottish Enlightenment that was such a bedrock of the innovation and imagination that this country and in many respects this city contributed to such a range of disciplines around the world, whether it was art and architecture, whether it was science and philosophy, medicine, poetry or economics. And many people ask, how did the Scottish Enlightenment happen? How did it make such an impact on the world? How did such a small country export such intellect and capability and imagination around the globe? And primarily that happened because of a free exchange of ideas and information. And because the great thinkers and the scholars of Scotland looked outwards, beyond their own shores, to Europe for their inspiration. The legacies of David Hume, of Adam Smith, of Robert Ferguson, of Robert Burns, James Craig, all endure to this day. And as you go around this city, you cannot avoid being touched by the impressive connection that the history and the architecture of this city has with the great foundations of the philosophy and thinking of these thinkers. And that sentiment lies very much at the heart of the agenda that the Inspire Conference is examining and exploring in the course of its visit to Edinburgh. The theme of this year's conference is Inspired by 2020, Contributing to Smart, Sustainable and Inclusive Growth. And this is a sentiment with which we empathise very strongly in the Scottish Government. The government of which I'm a part was elected first in 2007 and was re-elected just 2 months ago with an overall parliamentary majority. And throughout our term in office, our focus has been to say to all of our public servants, all of our public services, all of our public institutions, that the overwhelming and consuming ambition of the government is to increase sustainable economic growth in our country. So what we have aimed to do in public policy terms is to put right at the very heart of all decision making within government the ambition that we want to create a stronger and more sustainable economy for Scotland. So therefore, in all that we have to do, we have to harness the resources and the capabilities of our country to realise its full potential. In this very conference centre, a few months ago, we hosted an international conference on realising the ambition of Scotland to be a world leader in renewable energy technology. And I think dispassionately today, Scotland would be viewed as having taken the steps to ensure that we have the correct foundations to realise that ambition of increasing sustainable economic growth through the dynamic leadership of the renewables energy sector. So that's just one example of how we have translated the vision of this conference, inspired by the European 2020 vision, into a practical reality of what we want to achieve for the renewable sector here in Scotland. Now, much of your deliberation will focus around the practical manifestations of the European Union's Inspired Directive, which will be implemented through a number of major areas of activity, particularly through resource efficiency, through development skills and creating employment, and contributing towards Europe's digital agenda. And the conference is a valuable opportunity for all of us to explore in detail the global contribution that Inspire can make. And I certainly know that Scotland's progress in implementing the Inspired Directive will be showcased by many presentations from colleagues across the public sector in the course of your conference. One of the practical ways in which we've taken forward some of the thinking and principles within the Inspired Directive has been through our common framework for our geographic information strategy, One Scotland, One Geography. As the name suggests, all of our initiatives are designed to enable the public sector to work together in a collaborative and cooperative way. For instance, with our One Scotland mapping agreement, we are spending £5 million a year to ensure that central and local government, the health sector and our emergency services can share the same basic geographic data, an initiative that can lead to greater efficiencies and improvements in customer care. Another initiative, Scotland's Places, links data from across organisations so that Scotland's 40 million strong diaspora can trace their Scottish heritage back here to our own country. And that initiative alone is one of the strongest magnets for our tourism activity and our visitor attraction strategies here in Scotland. And the Scottish Environment website is an exciting new initiative that brings together all of the Scottish public sector environment organisations and third sector partners to enable the sharing of information and knowledge about relevant areas of activity in connection with the management and the protection of our environment. So in three very practical areas, on the mapping agreement, on the data sharing around Scotland's Places, and our work in collaborative design of environmental information, we have demonstrated that sharing information can be a strength in itself to provoke innovation, to pioneer new ways of working, and to ensure that in a time of great financial constraint that we are able to benefit from reducing cost and delivering efficiencies. One of the key planks of our work has been the creation of the Scottish Spatial Data Infrastructure. This is a federated approach which ensures that custodians or owners of data in Scotland can continue to manage and maintain their data, but to the standards that are required in Inspire. This approach means that we can deliver in a cost-effective and a collaborative way. Having accurate geographical information which can be shared across the public sector and can be used to inform decision-making can be vital for the delivery of public services and projects in the common good, but it's also essential in ensuring that we deliver the agenda of efficiency that is required. Geographic information showing areas of natural heritage, potential flooding, transport infrastructure can reveal opportunities to streamline delivery in the most efficient way, and I welcome the achievements that have been made in the improvements in public service delivery and digital engagement that have been achieved as a consequence. In the current financial climate, we need to ensure that we deliver public services that are efficient and effective and citizen-focused. In the last 2 weeks, we as a government have published two important assessments of the way in which these issues can be assessed. First of all, we've examined very carefully the utilisation and procurement of public sector ICT infrastructure, which has demonstrated that we have significant efficiency gains and cost gains to be made from improving the way in which we procure our public sector ICT infrastructure, and to ensure that common platforms and arrangements are in place to enable the sharing of services across organisations. And this represents a substantial opportunity to focus public services on the needs of the individual and also to improve the efficiency for the public sector. And later this morning, a review of public services in Scotland will be published by the Christie Commission, who have taken evidence from a broad range of stakeholders, looking at the demographic and social pressures that we face as a country and how to ensure that we can manage those expectations in a sustainable and effective way in the future. And all of these achievements have to be underpinned by the way in which we ensure that we utilise technology and ICT infrastructure in a way that can enable effective planning and efficient planning of our public services in the years to come. So in many respects, the government in Scotland and the public sector organisations in Scotland have worked to seize opportunities to establish collaboration around a whole host of different questions that affect the effectiveness of the public sector in Scotland. In 2009, I signed the One Scotland Mapping Agreement, which was an impetus to unite Scotland's public service in common purpose in the design of information to assist the planning of public services. There are now 100 member organisations across local government, the health sector, key environmental bodies, all signed up and playing an active part in delivering the aims of that agreement. This in turn has helped us to forge our collaborative approach to the implementation of the Inspire Directive in Scotland, and we will continue to use the strength of that partnership to deliver against the directive in full. And we continue to work with our colleagues in Northern Ireland and Wales and in the rest of the United Kingdom to contribute towards this important European directive. In the introductory remarks I made to you, I quoted from David Hume, and let me, in closing, make reference to one of Scotland's other great thinkers, and that is Adam Smith. Adam Smith's greatest work, probably the greatest work of importance to economists across the world today, is The Wealth of Nations. And it is perhaps apposite to reflect on the importance that that work still continues to have in our modern day thinking about the economy as we wrestle with how we adapt to major changes in technology and major changes in data sharing, and how these processes and approaches can have a significant bearing on our ability to live up to the expectations that have been set in The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, and to understand how our thinking today in these important areas of technology advance and public sector reform, how they can be inspired by the vision of Adam Smith, and how we can work to realise that vision in the 21st century. I welcome you warmly to the City of Edinburgh. I hope you enjoy your stay here. I hope you're inspired by the surroundings in which you meet, that the great legacy of the thinkers of the Scottish Enlightenment can perhaps encourage you to think boldly and imaginatively about the challenges that lie ahead. And I'm sure that this will be a fruitful few days of discussion and debate to establish how we can all make the greatest amount of progress on ensuring that the vision and the objectives of the Inspire Directive can be fully realised by all of us across the European Union. Thank you very much.